the Western Balkans. On other routes, we also discussed the increased pressure along the Turkey Eastern Mediterranean route. We reiterated the need for the compliance of the EU-Turkey statement, and we are ensuring that the conditionality of our support to Turkey for border management will be there to cover the many obligations that Turkey still has to deliver on areas like preventing returns, cooperating to reduce flows in Cyprus, and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, we saw that migration does not necessarily has to be an issue that toxifies politics. We need to bring some normality into the migration debate, and we need to continue showing that Europe is part of the solution and under no circumstances the problem. We saw that when we work like this, we manage, and we manage big time. We saw it when we produced the small European miracle of the Temporary Protection Directive for 6 million Ukrainian refugees. We saw it when we took a resolute and firm stance against the instrumentalization of migrants by the Lukashenko regime. We saw it when we stopped a hybrid attack on the Greek-Turkish border on Evros. And I'm confident that with our concerted action, we will also be able to see it soon, both in the Central Mediterranean route and in the Western Balkans. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we can open your questions. Let's make it a bit multilingual. Ich habe gesehen, Thomas Gutschke, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung.
Thanks a lot. Wenn das für die Länder, deren Häfen am nächsten sind, hat Italien dieses Prinzip ausdrücklich heute anerkannt und hat Frankreich im Gegenzug, wie der französische Minister das angekündigt hat, sich bereit erklärt, auch wieder Personen aus Italien zu übernehmen im Rahmen des freiwilligen Solidaritätsmechanismus. And a question to Vice President Skinas, which I may not ask in Greece, but in English. Going into the Council, you mentioned the Code of Conduct. Now, there's very different concepts of Code of Conduct, and I couldn't really read what you meant. Clearly, the Italian government has been calling for a code of conduct that is, I think, more for the governments than for the NGOs, meaning that they want an obligation for flag states to take care of people rescued with ships under their flag. So do you see any room for such a code of conduct? And if not, how should it be in practice? What would it improve? Thank you.
Also als ich vorher über die angenehme Atmosphäre im Saal gesprochen habe, es war wirklich keine Phrase, es war die Realität und ich muss sagen, ich habe wirklich keine große Spannung unter den einzelnen Mitgliedsländern heute gesehen. Ihre Frage war, hat es Italien anerkannt? Also meine Antwort ist, Italien hat es nicht abgelehnt in der Rede des Ministers. Und natürlich Frankreich sieht jetzt die Situation, oder natürlich Frankreich sucht jetzt nach konkreten Lösungen. Natürlich Frankreich hat den Willen, die gemeinsame Verantwortung aller Mitgliedstaaten in dieser Situation zu finden. Aber natürlich heute war die Diskussion eher solche, dass jeder der einzelnen Staaten die Möglichkeit hatte, sich zu der Situation zu äußern, zu einigen konkreten Ergebnissen, wenn wir weitere Schritte Richtung Zukunft machen. Dazu kommen wir höchstwahrscheinlich erst am 8. Dezember. Natürlich unser Vorsitz, unsere Präsidentschaft ist bereit, auch diese Zeit gut auszunutzen und mit allen einzelnen Ländern im Kontakt zu sein und natürlich auch mit der Kommission, die uns auch die Pläne für andere Migrationswege versprochen hat, bleiben wir im Kontakt und wollen wir auch im Dezember präsentieren.
Yes, on your question, Thomas, I'm a firm believer of the principle form follows function. So I wouldn't start with the form, I would start with the function. So I wouldn't start with a code of conduct, but I would start with some simple facts that for us, for me, NGOs, operations by NGOs is not a taboo subject. Is not something that should not be discussed. I also believe that this should be discussed because we are talking about people's lives. And I also think that operations in the Mediterranean and elsewhere cannot be operated under a wild, wild west situation where everybody does anything and it's okay. We need some order. We need a framework of cooperation. We need dialogue between the member states concerned and the NGOs. We need engagement. We need an orderly system. And I think this is possible. The Commission, we do not have legal competence to produce a pan-European code of conduct. I think this would be very difficult, but I see it perfectly possible for the Commission to help member states concerned to produce sets of rules, principles, strategies of cooperation and engagement so that we do not have these situations of the kind that lead to difficult crises. We have this contact group, we have structures, we are able to discuss in these contact groups of member states. And I think that this is the way to start. This is the place where NGOs should come, should engage, and then we will see what form this will take. But we need dialogue, and we need rules, and we need order.
Thank you. We have about 20 journalists who follow us online.
Good.
Eleonora Vasquez from Euractiv raised her virtual hand. Eleonora.
Hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one question. We all know that in the future, the migration from North Africa and the Middle East in particular will continue to flow a lot because of the climate change, because of the instability and so on. So my question is, if the decision is to prevent the departure, how can we conciliate the preventing of the departure with the saving lives and fighting traffickers? Because I don't understand it, because Italy did with Libya agreements that are producing situation in which traffickers are empowered and they are torturing these people. And I think that is a very great pull factor for people that want to escape from Libya instead of NGOs. So if you want to prevent the departures, how are you going also to fight traffickers instead of empowering them as it's happening with the Italian Libya Accords? Thank you.
Okay, there are many different things in this same pot. I will try to simplify. Europe will always remain an asylum destination for those who flee war and persecution. That's what defines us as Europeans. That's the European way of life. That's what we stand for. But at the same time, to have a European migration policy, we need to fight smugglers, we need to protect our external borders, and we need to return those who do not qualify for asylum and to be under the legal umbrella of the European Union. I do not see these principles as being contradictory. Some try to project these objectives as being contradictory. I do not think this is the case. So we can work. We need a system that is grounded in EU law. This is the pact. That's why the pact matters a lot. And I also think what we need is more commitment, more cooperation, more money with countries of origin and transit to help these countries create better conditions for their people to have better lives there rather than putting themselves in the hands of the smugglers. And we also need win-win partnerships with our neighbors to reinforce their border management systems, their coast guards, their border guard services, and their capacity to accept returns and readmissions. That's what we need, if you ask me.
Merci. L'autre question ici dans la salle de presse, Maria La Libre.
Merci beaucoup, Maria Odrescu, pour La Libre Belgique. J'aimerais savoir ce que cette réunion a concrètement changé. Je veux dire, si demain on avait un nouveau scénario Ocean Viking, qu'est-ce qui vous fait dire, qu'est-ce qui vous fait avoir la garantie que ce sera géré politiquement de manière différente? Et j'avais une deuxième question. Est-ce que vous auriez un exemple d'une Wild Wild West situation regarding NGO operations?
C'est à moi que tu t'adresses. Tout d'abord, vous vous souvenez de mon époque de salle de presse que je répondais jamais à des questions qui commencent par un si et hypothétique. Mais c'est ce qu'on change aujourd'hui, c'est qu'on a une vingtaine d'actions très bien spécifiées, très précises, qui offrent des solutions dans des situations différentes qui se sont produites et qui, s'ils se reproduisent, il y a une certaine automaticité dans nos réactions, chose qui n'était pas le cas jusqu'à présent. Enfin, vous avez suivi le déroulement de la crise Ocean Viking, c'était un peu l'improvisation. On accepte pas, on accepte quelques-uns, on accepte... Alors, voilà. On a 20 actions spécifiques, on a un accord politique important, tout le monde s'engage de travailler pour ne pas reproduire ce genre de situation. Ce n'est pas la solution définitive. Je répète que la solution définitive, ce sera que le moment où on aura le pacte, mais c'est un travail important qu'il ne faut pas sous-estimer. Surtout parce que ça rend positif la lecture de la politique européenne de la migration aux yeux de populistes, des extrémistes et des xérophobes qui ont utilisé Ocean Viking pour attaquer l'Europe directement. Et voilà, la réponse est donnée avec 2 semaines de retard, mais elle est donnée. Alors, Wild Wild West, c'est un... Comment dirais-je? Un soundbite, on dit. C'est une situation générique qui décrit une situation où les opérations de sauvetage en mer sont déroulées sans aucune coordination, sans aucun cadre, sans aucune relation entre ceux qui opèrent et ceux qui reçoivent. Alors je pense qu'il y a effectivement il y a une marge de travailler pour cet engagement mutuel. Je pense que c'est dans l'intérêt des ONG aussi de s'engager, et c'est aussi dans l'intérêt des États membres d'accepter les ONG dans ce groupe de contact pour aborder ensemble ce qu'il faut faire.
Merci, monsieur le ministre.
Tak ještě jeden jazyk, a to moje rodná čeština, kterou přeci jenom ovládám ze všech těch 3 jazyků nejlépe. Za prvé bych chtěl říci, že jsou tady 2 roviny, které nahlížíme jako předsednictví. Za prvé, my opravdu pracujeme na paktu o azylu a migraci. Troufáme si říct, že progres, který české předsednictví udělalo, a budeme ho prezentovat na prosincové řádné radě, je opravdu velký. A to je samozřejmě ten rámec, na kterém jsme se dnes všichni shodli v jednacím sále, že ho opravdu potřebujeme. Druhá věc jsou akční plány. Ten akční plán má dávat nějaký jasný návod pro řešení urgentní situace, která nám tady vznikla. A to je právě ta nejlepší prevence, abychom se neocitali v nějakých teoretických debatách, jak na takovou situaci znovu, pokud nastane, reagovat. Ale je potřeba si také uvědomit, že ten požadavek ostatních států, které čelí obrovskému tlaku, například z té západobalkánské migrační trasy Rakousko, ku příkladu v současné době, tak ten jejich požadavek mít také akční plány i pro řešení jejich situací je zcela legitimní, zcela opodstatněný a já bych ještě jednou rád poděkoval komisi, že je připravena pokračovat v přípravě těchto akčních plánů. Je to důležitý signál i pro ty státy, které se zase ocitají jako oběť nějakých jiných proudů než jen té středomorské trasy.
Thank you. Another question online. Momchil Indyov, Bulgarian Club Z.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As I see from the document of the Czech Presidency, that today the Schengen, the amendment to the Schengen Code were discussed. The Bulgarian Interior Minister told us that he had conversation with his Austrian colleague and with the Swedish representative. So my question is, first, has been Schengen area discussed during the Council, especially the future enlargement? And if so, do you think, Mr. Schinas, that the Balkan route can undermine the desire of Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia to join the Schengen area?
So first of all, the Schengen enlargement is still one of the highest priorities for the Czech presidency from its very beginning. We really support the Schengen enlargement for all three countries, but it wasn't the topic of today's discussion. It will be the part of the ordinary meeting in December. But sure, we have had a lot of bilateral meetings also with your minister, and there in this type of conversation was the Schengen enlargement a very important issue, but it wasn't the official topic of today's Council's discussion.
Indeed, it was not the subject of today's discussion. There will be a December of Schengen enlargement ahead of us. But since you are asking me, I can offer a personal opinion, probably a message to those who doubt the Commission's assessment that Croatia, Bulgaria and Romania are ready for many years now, and they have done more than many of the Schengen members have been doing. So for those who doubt our assessment about the readiness of the three, I would ask them to think again and think carefully, because contrary to what some forces try to project, that Schengen enlargement means less control, Schengen enlargement, in my view, would mean more controls and better controls. It would be more safety, the extension of our external border, more meaningful controls by enthusiastic young members who are aware of their responsibilities and will deliver. So let's see how December evolves, but I want to reiterate the Commission's assessment that the three countries are ready.
Last question here in the room. I think it was gentleman here in the middle.
Hi, I'm Peter from the Austrian Public TV and Radio. I actually have a question concerning, I think you've answered the question already about what you think about the Austrian threat to block the entry of especially Bulgaria and Romania. But then also, Austria has now proposed 5 measures to reduce illegal immigration on the Balkan route. And is there anything from the Commission side, any measures that you think are good and worth considering? And what do you think about the measures in general? Yeah.
Yes, I think the Minister just said, and I can repeat that we like the Austrian ideas, are ideas that are constructive, that they are at the same direction that our work goes, and probably the bulk of the problems that Austria is facing now is the Western Balkan routes, hence our decision to prioritize, as a matter of urgency, the elaboration of a new Western Balkan-specific action plan, which will be ready by early December.
I said it's the last question, but there are complaints from Italian media. So
and
if
Greek.
You make a deal, then we can afford one more question from Italian media.
You agree? I represent the Italians. Yes, Consoli from Asca News. My question is on actually one precise point. The French minister, Darmanin, former president of the council, of this council, said very clearly today, coming in, that the reason why France has suspended the relocation of migrants from Italy is that Italy is not respecting the law of the sea, because Italy is not receiving in its ports the migrants, and that's what happened with the Ocean Vikings. And he said very clearly, we cannot do at the same time, take the boats and also relocate. We relocate the migrants of other member states that are more exposed. They take the boat. If they don't take the boat, we don't relocate, which seems quite logic. So my question is to the Commission and to the Presidency: Can you say in a clear way that actually Italy cannot expect relocation of the migrants that are disembarked in its ports if it doesn't allow the boats to come into its ports? Thank you.
I think the question, the way you phrase the question is a bit complicated. I'm trying to simplify things. We are not improvising here. The international law compels member states that are in charge of the search and rescue area in the area of international law the responsibility to do what is necessary, which is save people's lives, take them the port, and determine their status. This is the modus operandi. So I'm not now going to reproduce the crossing of statements from both sides that would take us back to where all this started 10 days ago. I prefer to not to reproduce the negativity, but stay with the positivity of today. We now have 20 specific, very concrete things that would not allow for this situation to reproduce. Everybody knows what he has to do, and we all know what we have to do together. And we hope soon that when we have the EU Pact, that guarantee, that fairness element, that responsibility and solidarity mix would be also grounded in law, in EU law, because that would be EU legislation. Because we are operating now, as you probably understand, on an ad hoc basis, not rooted in EU law, without any right to evoke. We are consuming the political will and the political consensus to the limits.
Thank you. We are run out of time. Sorry for all those who were not able to ask their questions. Thank you very much for your attention and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.